Servus, Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. I had to wait until late at night to see meaningful results of the general election from Spain. First results were already expected at 8 p.m., but it took much longer before we had really a meaningful result, and that is because the race was tighter than expected. In my last video, I went over the polling data, and I think the last polls were from weeks before the election. They stopped taking polls right before the election for various reasons, I guess. And so what people expected due to the polling data was that the center-right party would gain a lot of seats and that VOX would stay almost constant. That is the, far-right populist party as they're called, but more about this and my opinion on these labels towards the end of the presentation, I guess. And so according to these polls, it would have been enough to form a single majority coalition between the PP, the People's Party of Spain, and the more right-wing populist party VOX. In the end, however, the Socialist Party under Pedro Sanchez performed a little better than expected. The PP couldn't win as many seats as expected, and VOX, instead of staying more or less constant, they lost a little bit. So the result is now that both the frontrunners of the larger parties are proclaiming victory, and there is really a potential deadlock situation because none of these two big parties seem to have a stable single majority coalition ready because they need, of course, coalition partners. And at the moment, the way it stands, it looks like neither of those two parties can organize a majority. Now, as I said in my last video already, minority governments are not uncommon whatsoever in Spain. However, at least the center-right PP, they don't really have options for that according to what I have read. They would need the support of VOX and then some other regional parties, and that doesn't look like that at the moment. On the other hand, Mr. Sanchez from the Socialist Party, he could do what he did before, and that is just make some promises to the regional powers in the Basque territories and in Catalonia, and maybe he can pull off another minority government, who knows. The head of the secessionist movement in Barcelona, he had to flee the country, I think. He fled to Brussels in Belgium in order to avoid being arrested for, well, secessionist activities. So there are a couple of possible explanations for why it turned out this way, but before I must say that in fact this center-right People's Party of Spain, they actually won a lot of seats compared to 2019, just not enough or not as many as expected in the polls, but they clearly gained, and that is kind of a bittersweet victory because technically they won a lot of seats and they are the winner of the elections. They came out as the biggest party with the most seats in the Senate. They have an absolute majority by themselves in the Senate. But in the more important Congress, it is not enough. They're still the largest party there with the most seats, but it is not enough for a coalition, as I said. So now, as for the explanations, you must know that this snap election was set, although by the end of the year there should have been a regular election anyway, I believe, so very soon, but Mr. Sanchez decided, as the current prime minister, to have snap elections now in the summer, at a time when many people maybe are already on vacation, it's very hot outside, and also there was a lot of mail-in voting this time. Make of this what you want. You can come up with your own explanations for why this would be a deciding factor or not. And also the reason for why Mr. Sanchez moved the election to an earlier date is that recently in communal, regional elections, VOX scored very highly and the socialists lost. And that scared him, so he wanted to have an election now before it gets worse later, towards the end of the year. And also I read that his campaign was pretty much based on scaring the people that the evil right-wingers might come into power and they will lead us down a path of darkness and they will overturn all these progressive modern laws. I talked about it in my last video, for example. So the rainbow-colored open borders dream world or this progressive wonderland that he tries to create in Spain, they will overturn all of that. And if you don't want that, you have to vote for us. And these tendencies, of course, exist also in Germany. I hear so many people say that they would vote for the AfD if they were just not so right-wing and if they were just not the N-word, right? Which is, of course, a bunch of government propaganda and complete nonsense, but apparently these kind of reflexes also work very well in Spain. You must just mention that a party is the F-word or the N-word or evil, and then there are some voters, not all of course, I mean they still have 13%, but some of the voters that voted for them during the last election or in these regional elections, like they come from 15% or more, some of these voters are really impressed by these horror scenarios, and maybe they were just voting for the more right-wing party back then out of protest, but they knew that they would never get into power. They just wanted to, make a statement or something. But once these people get the idea or the vague feeling that, after the election, when people are looking for a coalition partner, they might actually end up in power, and maybe some minister positions will be filled by the party members of VOX, or in Germany, the AfD, same thing, then they cuck. That's how I would describe it, They just wanted to make a statement, but they didn't really want to have any change, We're just playing, it's not for real, it's just a joke, it's just a meme, man, yeah? They are not serious about that. And these are exactly the kind of voters that didn't cast their vote this time or that voted for a different party this time. But coming back to Germany, I think that especially in the central German states, there you don't have this tendency so much. I think the voters there, they would really prefer that their mayors, their Landrat, and their governors, that they are from the AfD. And most of them would want an AfD chancellor in Germany, and they wouldn't cuck at that, I think, at that prospect of the AfD actually getting into power. They would actually want that. Now, I cannot speak for most AfD voters in Western Germany, but in Central Germany, I'm pretty sure that's the case. Because in most of these states, they already are over 30% or around 30%, and then, it's serious. So to sum up, as I said last time in my last video, there is not a problem with the cordon sanitaire, with the Brandmauer or firewall in Spain. This is what we have in Germany, where all other parties had to swear an holy oath in front of the rainbow altar to never cooperate with the AfD. This kind of situation is not present, is not there in Spain. However, this time it is my explanation kind of that the voters, or a certain segment of the former VOX voters, they cucked, and maybe also the PP voters, because they thought that a coalition with the right-wing VOX party is the most likely scenario, so they also probably cucked and didn't vote or voted socialist instead. And there you have it. Now there is a deadlock. This is at least what they're saying. The analysts are saying that there is no straightforward way for a stable coalition or a stable minority government even. It has long negotiations are necessary, and maybe the most likely outcome is new elections once again. So there is really a nasty deadlock in the political system of Spain right now, and who knows, maybe in the end this kind of stalemate will just help the more right-wing populist movements like VOX, especially now that the secessionist ambitions of certain regions, Barcelona and Basque territories, now that they come on the agenda once again, maybe now that will activate some voters on the right, some more patriotic voters who are in favor of a centralized, unified Spain, who knows. Towards the end, I want to give one more comment about these qualifiers and these categories of parties. Of course, when I say center-right or something for PP, the People's Party of Spain, I mean this is how they're referred to normally in the mass media or by the average media outlet. I don't think that they're center-right, obviously, and I think I said something like that about many European parties who are mostly the same in essence in all the European countries. I mean, there is always a Labour Party, there is always a Christian or centrist conservative kind of People's Party or something. There is always a Liberal Party, a Green Party, a Communist Party, and so on. But yeah, to me, for example, in Germany, the CDU is not a center-right party, even though they are called a center-right conservative party. They're not. To me, they are a socialist party, a pretty far-left socialist party that is just using the name and maybe the insignia in some cases of a formerly center-right party. At the latest, since Angela Merkel, or well, a couple of years into Angela Merkel's reign, it was very obvious that the policies that they implement are globalist, leftist, socialist policies and not center-right or whatever that is supposed to be. So just in case you're confused, this is not my opinion, I just want to stick to mainstream nomenclature so that nobody is confused, or maybe better put that maybe just a small number of people is confused, because some people will be confused anyways. So that as a little disclaimer. Let me know what you think about that and what might happen in Spain, especially if you are from Spain, if you live there, if you're Spanish. Post down below what you think about all that. Servus, Kameraden.